We do have some questions about the CFL Sim. We'll get to those in a moment. I don't want to keep Sean Reynolds waiting any longer. He joins us from Sportsnet Winnipeg in the Manitoba capital. I will say Canada's hockey capital, and in a minute I'll say why it is that. But good morning, Sean. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing, Rod?
Good. Hey, I was watching your outstanding report on Patrik Laine the other day, and I'm like, we got to get Sean on to talk about that. But before we go any further, the reason I call it the hockey capital, and you won't be surprised, NHL, AHL, WHL, MJHL, you just added another Junior A team in the Winnipeg Freeze. I would say it's Canada's hockey capital.
Yeah, we just got to start putting more players in the NHL, I think. That's the one area I think Manitoba's fallen behind a little bit. We got to start pumping and getting some more star players. I always find it interesting when you see all these Finnish players come over, and they come from these towns that are roughly the size of Brandon, and you got Alexander Barkov and Patrik Laine from these places, and you take a look at a city like Brandon that's had the Wheat Kings for years, and you're expecting, similar size stars to come out of those markets. We got to get back to producing players like those.
Yeah, no, well, it certainly goes in cycles, I think, and I'm sure it's coming. I mean, good Lord, you got enough hockey there and enough development and enough population. But watching your Laine report, it struck me that you must be a born and raised Winnipegger. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I'm from a small town about an hour outside Winnipeg, but that's interesting that you picked that up. Why'd you land on that?
Well, I will tell you, but what's the small town that you're from?
It's called Lac de Bonnie.
Lac de Bonnie. I might have driven by it.
Near Beausejour, close to Selkirk. I played football in Selkirk when I was younger. Selkirk is one of the Junior A cities that you're speaking about.
Of course. So how did I pick it up? Yeah. It was because you talked about Laine wanting out, and you said, just like the string of Howardchuck and Solane, and now Laine. But let's just talk about that for a second. They're all for different reasons, though. Wouldn't you say that they had to leave?
Yeah. By saying that, and it's interesting, Twitter, if there's ever any, kind of potential, gray area in what you say, Twitter will let you know it. And someone came and said it was lazy journalism that I was comparing Laine's leaving to some of these other players like Solane. I wasn't by any means saying that, they're all leaving for the same reason. What I was saying is there's a history in Winnipeg of us watching star players leave time and time again, and it hurts every time it happens. And if that happens with Patrik Laine, it's going to hurt because people in this town have loved Laine since day one. And if he finds his way to another city, that's going to be tough for a lot of fans.
Yeah, so that's how I could feel the emotion in your report. So it wasn't lazy journalism. I'm like, this guy's hurting. And with Ducky, I know why he left. The dispute with Neil Smith. I don't really remember Solane. Maybe you can fill me in. And now with Laine, it's just because he's not on the first line. Like, holy pouty pants? Or have I misread that situation?
I don't know that you've misread it. I think that the rub lies in whether or not that's a big enough reason. I think the one stat that stands out, when I was doing that story, Laine is seventh in scoring since he came into the league, and a good chunk of that he did as a teenager. And it just makes you think if this guy's the seventh best scorer, proven best scorer, seventh best in the league since he came in, and he's done that not on the first line, it makes you wonder what he could do if he was on that first line. And that's clearly what he's going to be wondering. And before I came on the show, I'd forgot about this stat. I'd trotted it out a couple of years ago. And then, so I don't have the exact stat, but I do know the year that Laine went over 40. He was playing on the second line. Brian Little was his centerman. And when I went down and broke it down, Little had assisted on something like 6 of Laine's 44 goals. And that what that told me was that Laine was scoring when he escaped that second line. When he got off that line and got opportunities, that's when he was doing his scoring. So, we always remember what it was like to be young men in our late teens or early 20s, how fiery and passionate we could be, how fully convinced of certain things. And, we knew more than our dads did. And they said, just hold on, son, take it easy, take it all in. And you don't want to at that age. And so you've got a young guy who has proven time and time again that when you give him opportunities, he's going to score. He's scored regardless. The other big question that I'm sure he's asking himself and his representation is asking himself is how many other teams in the league, of the 30 other teams, how many of those teams wouldn't have Patrik Laine on the top line? And if you start looking around and seeing that that number is probably in the high 20s, if not higher, then you've got a kid who's looking around and thinking that his situation could be better almost anywhere else than where he is right now.
Wow. So I'm wondering, because the one thing that wasn't in your report, you said the agent said maybe the best thing is for a trade. Where do Chevy and Paul Maurice sit on this? Because you talk about the dads. They're the dads of this situation. They can't, unrest. My thing is, if a guy doesn't want to be here, he should go. Where are the Jets sitting on that? Those two guys in particular.
Well, I don't want to speak for them. I can say that I don't think it's easy when it comes to star players and just letting them go, because you take a look at a team like Vegas and they can just bring in stars and move other guys because they know as long as they can dump that salary that they brought in, they'll find someone else who wants to come play in a tax-free state. And it's got a great arena, a great organization, great fans. So it's easy to draw guys in there. We know that it's not like that in Winnipeg. We know you just can't turn around and go and grab the biggest guy on the market and bring him to Winnipeg. So that becomes a problem. So I do feel for Kevin Cheveldayoff in the manner that you can't just let these guys go. On the other hand, you got to ask yourself whether or not Patrik Laine plans on staying long-term with the Winnipeg Jets. Right now, he's following the exact same path out of town. This is what I see, as Jacob Trouba did. He did his 3-year entry-level deal. He did a 2-year bridge deal. Laine's in the second year coming up of that 2-year bridge deal. And then you've got arbitration rights and 2 years of team control after that. I don't think the Jets felt in the end that long battle they went back and forth with on Trouba when he wanted to leave, but they held on to him until that very last year. I don't think in the end, even though I think they did really good with what they got, better than they probably should have, I think they felt maybe if they would have moved him earlier, they could have got more. So now you're in that same situation with Patrik Laine. If he's not going to stay and you only have 3 more years of team control, then what can you take that asset and turn it into long-term? And here's the really interesting part of it is, with all that's happened with COVID, it's tough to fit big players into your salary cap, and Patrik Laine is going to need a raise. So right off the bat, if you are thinking, let's move this guy and get something that's going to carry us to success for years down the road, it's hard to do that as it is right now because there aren't a lot of teams that can take him on. Well, we don't know what this upcoming season is going to look like. And financially, teams could find themselves in even worse shape next summer than they are this summer. So the fact of the matter is it may never be a better time to move Patrik Laine than right now. And that's what Kevin Cheveldayoff has to consider if the decision is we're going to move him. The other decision could be, look, we feel we've got a window right now. We've got 3 years of team control. Let's use him for those 3 years. That's the best chance we have at winning a cup. He's in town, and then we're going to lose him for nothing, but at least we put our best foot forward. I think those are the two situations that they're weighing. But the idea of what you could get for Patrik Laine on the open market that could carry this team for years to come, that has to be enticing, especially if there's a player that wants that.
See, that's what I'm thinking. And obviously, those are the discussions that are being held behind closed doors daily, probably in Winnipeg. But from our resident Flyers fan, Todd Pinckney writes in and says, can we rehash the Laine to Flyers trade rumors? They seem to be the only team the Jets have discussed to trade with so far. Do you think that might happen?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I think you take a look around, and I think if you're the Jets and you're going to move a premier asset like Patrik Laine, what you need most is defense. So you're going to need to have to go out and get a premier defenseman back, and probably some prospects that are going to be able to carry you forward. So right off the bat, you have to deal with teams that have, those kind of defensemen who they have enough room to move. I see Philly as being one of those teams. I see Carolina as being one of those teams. But the problem with moving a guy like Patrik Laine is you're going to want a 1A defenseman in return for him. And is Philly going to move Ivan Provorov? I don't think so. Potentially a Travis Sanheim. I think that would be interesting to explore. Maybe you go the route of taking 2 very solid to a defenseman or a 1B, and then take another solid defenseman along with that and some guys that you have team control of for a while, because that's always enticing in Winnipeg to have guys that you've got locked up for a number of years. But that's the tricky part is you don't, I don't think you win a trade with where you're trading away Patrik Laine, because the old adage that, whoever gets the best player wins the trade, it's going to be hard to find a team that's going to give you a better player back than you gave in Patrik Laine. And I think the funny part about that is when we come back to the way that Patrik Laine is thinking about this, you hear all this talk, and I think that the Jets probably feel this way. We can't win a Patrik Laine trade because he's going to be the best player in a trade. You can't possibly trade a player the caliber of Patrik Laine and win that trade. And I think he's probably sitting there and hearing that and thinking, hey, if you can't possibly win a trade because I'm that high of a caliber of a player, then why am I not playing on your first line?
Of course he's saying that. Well, with Sanheim and Provorov, at least they both know Manitoba. One's from there and one played there. But so great eye on that. Sean, 2 last questions. One, it's been coming up on the show the last couple of days. January 1st, do you feel the NHL will start on that date, as the commissioner has said?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think that he said specifically, it's going to start on that day. I think that became the target after December 1st. I think when we were in Edmonton and we were covering the playoffs, I don't think any of us felt that December 1st was, a target that they were going to be able to achieve. My sense is probably mid to late January. That's what I would think. I think they'd be doing well to start at that point.
Well, I'll take it. I think we'd all take it. Sean, what did you do before Sportsnet?
I was the late night news anchor at CBC, did some radio reporting for them. Before that, I was at, bouncing around the news part of the industry. Before that, I operated a roofing company. And I didn't spend any time in Saskatchewan. I almost went to Saskatchewan to work on the oil rigs, but I used to do heavy duty construction and camp jobs in Alberta, the Northwest Territories. We helped build a diamond mine in the Northwest Territories, Diavik Diamond Mine. So I kind of have a tale of 2 different lives. I used to build like bridges and overpasses and mines, and then got out of that and went in a kind of a completely different direction. So,
well, then you know what real work is, and what we're doing here is not that. But good for you.
Exactly.
You're crushing it out there. I could talk to you all day. Sean, thanks for this. Keep in touch, and stay safe out there in Manitoba.
Appreciate that, Rod. Thank you. You as well.
Sean Reynolds joining us from Sportsnet Manitoba. And I'm telling you, like literally, when he got hired there, Darren, it was like, boom, on the scene, Sean Reynolds. I'm like, where did this guy come from?
Yeah.
Now it finds out he's on oil rigs.
Right.
And building bridges. Real work.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.